Cursed Land by Donbor from the Dead City EP. You'll find a link to the Bandcamp in the description. Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Transatlantic's Countdown to Cyberpunk. My name is Kindred.
And I'm Bad Juju.
And this week we are covering the 2012 movie Dredd. We're watching it on the UK Blu-ray 2D version because we don't have a 3D TV because no one else does really anymore. And
we're already in 3D and we don't need 3D.
Yeah. Well done, Grandma. Yes, we are. And also, stop watching TV. You guys should get outside and play in the sunshine.
No, I just think it looks gross. Like, it makes you ill.
We had a debate about it before we even started. Yeah. Anyway, right. So, if you've got your copy ready, get ready to press play now. Okay, so the much underrated, well, it's not really underrated by people who've actually seen it, but it was horrifically marketed by Lionsgate.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I don't think the ads for this really pushed it enough, because this is like way better, I mean, than the original one, which I just think is horrible.
Yeah, well, I mean, this was, oh god, you see, it's kind of, well, it's like the elephant in the room, isn't it? It's impossible to really talk about this film without bringing up the 95 Judge Poor Armand Asante.
With Reb Schneider.
Reb Schneider is in Mega City 1. Reb Schneider is a dickhole. Schneider is a dipshit. Diddly dipshit. Yeah. But so you got like anyway, backing away from Rob Schneider.
In a world where Reb Schneider
just gonna not commentate this film and just completely piss on Rob Schneider.
I'll be honest, I actually really love this film. I think it's really solid.
I was cautiously optimistic when I heard of it, because I heard Alex Garland was writing it, so I thought, oh, that's a good sign. I heard that they were working quite closely with John Wagner and Carlos Esquerra, I think, and also, most importantly, I heard fairly early on that they were going to keep his helmet on.
Yeah.
Because, well, we
and they never take it off.
Just like they shouldn't do.
Yeah.
Well, because we both come from a comic background, but obviously me being British, long time 2000 AD fan since I was a kid, and you see the sort of teaser there for a bit. I kind of panicked a little bit there that they're going to show his face.
Yeah.
Sorry. Good old Carl Urban. He's a pro. He's a trooper.
At least you know that. Well, I guess judging by the silhouette, you know that he's
by the silhouette.
Well, he seems to be like a normal guy and not have this grotesque appearance. But regardless, I don't think it really matters.
Well, that's the running joke in the comic. But yeah, well, you never really read any 2000 AD, did you, growing up? So
no.
I think they had some DC reprints back in the 80s or 90s. It's weird, but they condensed it all because ours is a larger. You've seen what 2000 AD looks like. It's not like the size is an American comic format size. It's more European. So I think when they sort of shrunk it down, there was a fair bit of image distortion. They weren't good reprints, basically. But I know that there is a real strong cult following for the character in the US as well. But obviously, we feel quite protective about Judge Dredd since he is a British invention and he is one of our most iconic.
My first introduction to him is obviously through that painful film with Reb Schneider.
With Danny Cannon. Oh, bless him. I felt a bit sorry for him. The thing about the annoying thing about the Stallone one is it wasn't 100% awful in the sense that, I mean, story-wise it was dumb. But,
it was really dumb.
No, but they had some great makeup in there on Mean Machine. The ABC War Droid looked awesome. The actual what little you saw of Mega City 1 looked really quite similar to the comics, whereas this, although it is still
Yeah.
Similar. They've gone for a really, because obviously
A gritty realism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's difficult, because I mean I've read a fair bit of Judge Dredd over the years, and the problem with, if you're going to make a strict, hey, we're being as accurate to Mega City 1 as possible. Mega City 1 is, I mean, the Judge Dredd is a satire. That's the whole thing. So Mega City 1 is mental. It's got all kinds of fantastical stuff. You've got fatties walking around with a wheel on a stick propping their stomach up, and you've got mutants and vampires.
I think there's one
aliens.
reference to that in here.
Yeah. Oh yeah. There's just like this little reference to Chopper, who's a skyboard and
I kind of
anti-hero.
appreciate that the only supernatural thing
they did have the bike
is probably Anderson being a psychic or like an empath. Because it's like, it would make sense if there's like a world like messed up by radiation.
She's a mutant. That's the
right.
thing.
Yeah.
Because the whole thing about her is where she's unusual, being a mutant. Because in 2000 AD verse, right, most mutants are hideously deformed, and it is because, in the world of Judge Dredd.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think, on the North American continent, you got Mega City 1, which is basically the entirety of the eastern seaboard, and I think you're supposed to have like 800 million people living in it. And then you got Mega City 2, which is kind of like California, and the spoof about Mega City 2 is...
On the new flag, though, isn't they said that there's only 6 stars to represent what?
Oh, I can't remember.
Because there's probably only like.
See, why'd you have to ask me a fucking question like that, where you're just showing up my ignorance? Because I'm trying to carefully skirt around what I know.
Well, we can look it up right now. No, but sorry.
From the comics, I seem to recall it's Mega City 1, which is the Eastern Seaboard, which is where Dredd's based. And it's almost, I think it was originally modelled initially after like sort of pre-Giuliani New York, but massively exaggerated, because everything's exaggerated in this. And then you've got Mega City 2, which is like hilariously quite the opposite, where it's almost like, in Demolition Man.
Yes.
It's like the police in the future there. Everything's like
that's really our Judge Dredd. That's a much better.
Oh yeah, it's a better Judge Dredd film than the Stallone Judge Dredd film, almost.
I wonder though if that's kind of where they got the idea from, because I don't really know too much.
Demolition Man got it from Judge Dredd?
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like,
I've no idea.
I mean, it's a strong possibility, though. Somebody said, "Oh, Judge, make a Demolition Man." Yeah.
Well, the point is, Mega City 2 in the 2000 AD universe is more like that. So not only is it not got as much crime, it's hardly got any crime, and the judges are all happy and friendly, and it's a cool place to live.
Yeah, it's here. The American flag only has 6 stars now, representing mega states.
Well, then you've also got Texas City, which is just Texas, but
bigger.
Again, hyper exaggerated, where all your judges wear like Stetsons and stuff, and they're just all like ultra violent cowboys, and it's just ultra Texas, basically. Texas squared.
Texas squared.
So there you go. You see clever integration of it's quite efficient with showing things about Dredd's universe, because you got the brief voiceover at the beginning just telling you basically what Mega City 1 is and what this future is, but then you've already seen Dredd's bikes, cannons, that's also known as the Lawmaster in the comics, and
he actually did his own stunts with that. Like, he was actually riding on the bike. He was like, I'm gonna ride that bike. I was like,
I want to ride a bike and pew pew guns. But because he's got it's voice activated in the comics. The Lawmaster responds. It can act independently and follow commands from the judge. Also, he's got the Lawgiver, which is gun, which fires multiple types of ammunition. Incendiary, we saw that, which is also voice activated. And here we see Judge Anderson, who is a character in the comics, and it was a shrewd idea, I think, to include her in this, because it was twofold. One, it showed something of the wider universe of or the Dreddverse, so to speak, as it shows that psychics exist. But the rare thing about her is she looks perfect. Not only does she look perfectly human and has no other deformities, but it's implied with Anderson, like she's incredibly powerful when it comes to her psychic abilities, where the small amount of people who are a bit psychic are sort of slightly psychic, and it's usually a side effect, and they look like the Toxic Avenger half the time, and so. But the judges do have a side division.
Yeah.
She's like a high-ranking officer in the comics. If there's anyone listening to this and is a big 2000 AD fan, I'm a bit spotty where my knowledge is concerned, because I've sort of dipped in and out of 2000 AD a lot over the years, ever since I was a kid. So there's definite gaps in my knowledge, and I'm not completely up to date as is. So feel free to add any additional information.
And if I say anything that offends you where all this is concerned, I'm sorry. Go F yourself. I'm a New Yorker. I don't care. No, I really, it's not something that was, I would say was readily available for me as a kid.
No, sure.
I think that it's way more accessible now.
Yeah. No, I mean, well, it's like I've been to cons before, and you hear all the American comic creators going, oh yeah, read Marvel and DC and like Archie or something growing up, and of course all the British creators would be like, oh, I read 2000 AD, or read the Beano and the Dandy, or like if they're a bit older they might read the Eagle. Like there's a lot of like, in the 70s you had like boys comics and girls comics, and like the boys comics, all these adventure comics, and the girls comics are like just romantic stories, and some of them had some pretty scary stories in the girls comics as well, some kind of ghost stories. So this is all shot in Johannesburg, and the Compton, obviously the giant, like the mega blocks, which is
it's weird. Usually like when you want to do like a futuristic city, either they film in Johannesburg, Hong Kong, or they go somewhere like in America, like where it's kind of dystopic, and they go, yeah, that's what we're going to use, and then they expand it with like the matte painting. Or,
well, I mean, with this, these sort of, I think there's digital composites sort of placed over the top of certain buildings. It's almost like, I don't know the right terminology, but just superimposed on top of existing buildings. Here's the first example of slow-mo, because that way you got to see it all pretty in 3D on the cinema screen.
It's immersive. I literally feel like the bathtub jizz is right in my face.
But, so everyone, in the 2000 AD future, you get a lot of people living in blocks, like mega blocks, which are like self-contained cities. And because you need to read Block War and Apocalypse War. Except I've got that hardcover. It's not called Block War. What's it called? I forgot. But it's a prelude to when Mega City 1 goes to war with Sov City.
Right.
Essentially, and there's like a bazillion nukes fired at each other. So they decided to go more sort of realistic, which I can see why, because I think you'd have to kind of pick a tone if you're doing one movie. Because if you try to do this, but then also go, we've got mutants and aliens and vampires and everything else as well.
Yeah.
I think it might detract from the tone of what they're trying to achieve. So I think
probably something like that works better in a comic, but when you're trying to do something a little more grounded, I think things like psychics and people with like powers like that, it feels a little more like when you start doing like, oh, and now we have things like vampires, unless it's like a genetic disorder or like a disease that kind of induces like vampirism.
Bear in mind, like Judge Dredd is completely a satire, right?
Yeah.
In the same vein as RoboCop, which was notoriously Judge Dredd was notoriously ripped off by Ed Neumeier and like Rob Bottin a little bit. Not massively so. That's not fair, but heavily influenced. And there's a couple of bits that were blatant rip-offs. Like if you saw, I showed you the picture of the original RoboCop helmet, didn't I?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it is literally exactly Judge Dredd's helmet. It's a judge's helmet. Like, not even similar. It's exactly that. And the whole, like, dead or alive, you're coming with me, and your move creep were just taken, with Judge Dredd quotes taken from, like, covers of previous 2000 AD.
Did they ever do a crossover in the comics with the Judge Dredd and RoboCop? They had to have.
They might. I don't know, because I know you got Judge Dredd and Batman, you got Judge Dredd and Aliens and Predator. Yeah. Well, I don't know, because there's a few Judge Dredd and Batman ones actually. It's pretty good.
Because I know there's a RoboCop Terminator crossover, which is pretty cool.
That was really cool. That was I missed my shot of buying it because I read it digitally. I thought I've got to get the hardcover of it, and it had just gone out of print, and it was one of those ones you look on Amazon and some arseholes like going, yeah, you can have it for like 300 quid. You can have the 30 quid graphic novel.
See, this I think is pretty funny, right?
Yeah.
You see, like, I know that there's a lot of poverty and violence and stuff, but it seems like there are people like coming out of that giant apartment complex or, city block. Like there are people that go, oh yeah, well, I'll venture outside.
I think that's the thing is, it's weird because I adore this film, and I think it's far closer to the source material than the Stallone one.
Yeah.
But I think they could have done certain things more, because like obviously the original comics are satire, and this is played very straight. This whole film.
This kind of looks like right before you come out of like the station in Liverpool, like when you go into like the city center.
Lime Street.
Yeah, like right.
You should have seen what it looked before.
No, but it's funny because it's like I'm saying, like it doesn't look that dirty. It looks clean.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like.
See, I'm gonna say everyone looks a bit kind of like dressing a bit modern. I mean, bear in mind, this is supposed to be roughly... Well, the very first issue of Dredd in the comics takes place in the year 2099.
Yeah.
And it was basically implied that the mid-21st century was a gigantic nuclear war, which is why you've only got 3 megacities in the US, because the rest of it is known as the Cursed Earth, and it's just a basically irradiated wasteland.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it sort of makes sense that they would be wearing normal clothes because they are... poor, and like this is like your average, like what this is like lower middle class or something like that, or maybe even lower than that. But
most people are poor. I mean, it's because the whole thing about Mega City 1 is unemployment is sky high, everyone's crowded and packed on top of each other, right. So it's got that real kind of sort of boiling pot kind of, everyone's squished in. There's loads of crime, obviously, because there's loads of poverty, there's loads of unemployment. And so, I mean, essentially, Dredd, well, the judges are sort of very fascistic police force, because their answer to that is, well, you just zero tolerance to crime, or very heavy sentences, and the whole point about judges, they are judge, jury, and executioner in one. I mean, they can actually authorize on the spot. It isn't like a cop, where I think some people get this confused, like, it isn't like a cop so he can just kill a suspect in self-defense. It's more like, no, he can have a suspect in custody,
right,
and if the crime was severe enough, he can pass a sentence there and then and execute him.
Right. I mean, I guess it's more efficient that way, considering the amount of crime that they have.
Well, yeah, because technically the judges are still massively outnumbered by the criminals. But, I mean, about Mega City 1 is it'd be a miserable place to live.
Yeah.
And again, it's one of those places where, unless you were super rich, unless you were literally super rich, your life is crap.
Yeah.
And this gives rise to, obviously, all these weird and wonderful characters. I mean, they've decided to stay fairly grounded with Mama in terms of she's this ex-prostitute who got cut up one time by a John and then just went mental and just brutally started taking over. I mean, 'cause as you can see, there's a whole block, and there's there was 4 different gangs operating in the same city blocks. It's that big. But yeah, it's like, how often we get a judge in Peachtree because they're stretched that thin. So even with all their instantaneous judgments that they perform on criminals,
right,
it's always like a losing battle because there's simply too many crimes occurring at any one time. There's not enough judges for the criminals, essentially. So yeah, it is grim. And the worst thing about Dredd, I mean, like, bear in mind, he was created.
right.
He was created by John Wagner and Carl Siscara, right? He was created as a parody of a symbol of a fascist state. Carl Siscara specifically chose symbols like, that. Okay, in this one,
the gold eagle,
like the Roman Empire, and you've got like the sort of faceless helmets. Yeah, well, you can't see their eyes. It's that. I mean, he deliberately chose that. I mean, the funny thing is, actually, in the Stallone Dredd, the big, chunky gold eagle,
right,
shoulder pad is actually more accurate to the comic. But I think with the gritty sort of feel, the more realistic feel they're going with this,
right.
I think that there was a wise decision to make his uniform look more like sort of reinforced bike leathers, because
Right.
it makes it look more like riot police armor. And also, if you had a massive gold chunky eagle sticking out your shoulder, in this kind of tonally for this film, it just seemed a bit cartoonish. It seemed way off.
And I also like that the uniform is more slimmed down, like it's more compact, like you feel like you could move around with it a lot easier.
Yeah.
Like it just has padding in the areas where you need to, because like didn't they say that the helmet is bulletproof?
Yeah, it is to a degree. It's reinforced. Yeah, it just makes me laugh when you get these absolute dipshits. People who are like, oh, maybe they'd be better off if we had someone like Judge Dredd taking care of crime. If we had a society like that. Like, are you serious?
That's when society hits the lowest point.
Yeah. That's, like in Mega City 1 world, sugar is outlawed. Like if you want to smoke, you have to go to the smokatoriums, a giant. Everything is awful. Like even if you do something like, if you're running in a non-running zone, you get sentenced to like 6 months in the ISO cubes. It's completely over the top. It's complete autocracy. Like it's not an autocracy. It's technically it's run by a council of judges. But no. But the point is, it's hellish. It's an exaggeration. Oh God, that's just gross. Like Swayze's cheek open, just his teeth get blasted out.
It's pretty cool though.
Does look cool, but I can't help but feel, even though it's not what Alex Garland said, but this was done in 3D because the whole slow-mo idea was clearly incorporated into that just as an excuse to show some cool slow-mo shots, which I have no problem with whatsoever. But let's be honest, that's why you decide to make that a plot point,
Right.
because you don't see what recycle is, but when you die in the Mega City 1 universe, your body just gets recycled. Just gets stripped down to its useful parts.
Right.
It gets mulched, or I can't remember if there's an issue where there's like a Soylent Green type element to it where
meaning that people just eat that.
I'm not entirely sure. I can't. Again, I'm not the authority on this. Should have Rich in on this, talking about all this stuff, because he's like absolutely encyclopedic about when it comes to Dredd stuff. Avon Barksdale from The Wire.
Was he on The Walking Dead? Not just The Wire.
not just Chad L. Coleman.
Not just Chad L. Coleman.
Well, if you haven't seen that, just look up what's the best. What's she put into YouTube?
I don't know. Chad L. Coleman has a meltdown. I consider that a breakthrough.
like,
because if you didn't know who he was then, now you do. And it's
guy who played Tyrese in The Walking Dead, for anyone who doesn't know. And I can't remember his character's name in The Wire. But Chad Coleman, Walking Dead, The Wire. Why am I humanitarians at? Here's Donald Gleason. Wonderful
How do you
actor.
say it? Donald?
Domhnall.
Just call him Dom, you know.
Okay,
Hey, Dom.
Dom Gleason. You know,
Hey,
son
Dom, how you
of
doing?
superb actor, son of also superb actor
Yes.
Brendan Gleeson. Who
Yes.
I know Donald Gleason's fantastic. I think he's made some very wise decisions with his career because he's got a really good range. He's done a lot of different characters where it really just showcases how flexible he is.
He was in 28 Days Later, wasn't he?
Brendan Gleeson, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he played what's his name? He played the cab driver anyway.
Yeah, he's my favorite character.
Nah, he's fantastic. Well, he did have a really stupid death. I looked up just as some infected blood dropped out of a crow's mouth into my eye.
And then it happened that quick.
Well, yeah, that's the whole thing about the rage virus. Isn't it? Like 10 seconds and you start going mental.
Realistically, I mean, what pathogen can do something like that?
Well, that's what's so funny because it's like the zombie virus. It was something if someone gets bitten and like, I'll give them half an hour, and it's like even the most virulent, the most fast-acting virus in the world doesn't incubate anywhere near that quickly. No way.
Because, I mean, the only thing, like adrenaline works that way because they're saying, oh, the virus is like pure adrenaline.
So wouldn't that make it adrenaline then?
Right, exactly. Well, then, yeah.
No, I feel really sorry for him here. He's just, he plays this sort of really terrified, pathetic guy so well.
Yeah.
And I mean, maybe I'm just adding stuff here, but you see how his eyes are sort of reddened because he found like he got his like eyes replaced by those implants.
Yeah.
Didn't he? But I just wonder if the reason why they're reddened is almost like maybe they're really uncomfortable in the eyelids. Maybe they're just a little bit too big, the ocular implants. Maybe they're constantly irritating him.
Either that, or I also assume that she probably keeps him up.
Oh, that too.
A lot. Like, he just looks really tired and worn.
Yeah, no, he does a great job of it. I feel like really, really sorry for him.
And he's a ginger.
Essentially a prisoner. Yeah, he hasn't got enough to deal with.
No, I appreciate his red hair. They said, we're not going to dye it. You just grow it out. And there you go.
Olivia Thirlby's spider senses. Looking. He's changed his mind. Oh, Carl Urban's so good in this. Carl Urban's good in everything, though. He's just a guy I have the greatest fondness for.
I remember when he played Caesar in Xena.
See, I never watched Xena.
It was great. Well, because he had like that presence, like what's his name, who played Ares, who now passed away. I'm so sorry, I forget his name. I can't think of it right now. The actor who played Ares on Hercules and Xena. I forget what else he was in, but I don't think he really had much of a splash after that. Even so, it's like Carl Urban, and then what's his name? I can't think of his name right now. Ryan Gosling, who's also like on a young Hercules show. He got really.
Was he? Right.
He got really famous. It's like you start out on TV and then you blow up.
So this is your war protocol. So presumably, it's an anti-nuke kind of measure. And
assuming that people have missiles. Well, they probably do.
They do.
Yeah.
They do. Yeah, they do completely. I told you about like the Apocalypse war, where it's basically Mega City 1 ends up going to war with Sov City, like Soviet City. What's left of that, and they just launch a ridiculous amount of nukes at each other, and it's just, I think like tens, if not hundreds of millions of people die, and it's great because it's ridiculously over the top. Block Mania, that's it. Block Mania is the storyline that leads up to the Apocalypse War. It's great. I've got them both collected together. I've got that book. You really need to read it. It's fantastic. It's just complete madness. And because each nuke that Mega City 1 has, it's like a MIRV nuke, so like the warheads split off into other
Right.
warheads, and each like one of those can like destroy like 100-block radius or something ridiculous or something like that. So it's complete overkill. See, it's quite a clever plan as well, because you'd have to do this to trap a couple of judges, because otherwise you just call for backup and they just go in and kill everyone. Yeah, so you'd have to contrive this scenario. But by this point, it's kind of unclear whereabouts in Judge Dredd's life this takes place, because he's obviously been on the beat for a few years.
Yeah.
But it's in the comics, after a while, obviously Dredd is like infamous throughout Mega City 1. It's a bit like the Punisher, right? If you hear Dredd's after you, if you're a criminal, then like you're terrified because you're screwed.
Right.
Because he's like the best.
Yeah, and I know that they're kind of stretched thin, but at the same time, you wouldn't think with something like this they wouldn't try to send in at least like maybe have 6.
They are stretched that thin. That's the whole point, though. And also, judges are supposed to be like the elite.
Right. I see what you're.
So they're kind of like super cops plus like special forces, rolled into one kind of thing, and especially Dredd.
Right.
So
he's kind of he's established a name for himself.
Well, because he was, the whole thing about Dredd is, if you recall from the Stallone film, which is like, and this bit is accurate to a degree, where like he was cloned from him and Rico were cloned from a bunch of judges' DNA.
Yeah.
So he's like a genetically engineered judge. So he's supposed to have like, he's got like Judge Fargo's DNA in him as well. You kind of sees him, he's like a sort of father figure. So he's kind of like the Captain America of like, he's a super soldier judge sort of thing.
Do you think that if they got a chance to make the sequel to this, that they probably would have introduced Rico?
Maybe, I don't know. I heard people talk about they'd have Judge Death. I wouldn't want that, because I'm not a big fan of. Well, Judge Death is an interesting character,
but that's sort of a dimensional character.
Yeah, he's very supernatural, and it would seem like an odd choice for a sequel. And as much as I kind of like visually, he's a cool cat, and the idea of him's kind of cool. Once you kind of break him down, he's quite one-dimensional, because he comes from a different dimension where they go to the mad conclusion. They come to the mad conclusion that basically all crime is committed by the living, so therefore, by extension, life is a crime.
Right.
So he's like in Judge Death, he was once a guy called Sidney Diath, and he essentially goes to these weird sort of witches who kind of put this enchantment on, this kind of curse, which makes him immortal and vulnerable, really. So every time his body's destroyed, his spirit just escapes and inhabits another body and can possess another body. So he's kind of this. I think it's Judge Anderson was the one who beat him the first time, I think. He went to possess her, and she just kept him contained. And then I think they transferred him to this. Oh, is it called Boing or Sproing or something like that? This weird rubber sort of quick setting. Again, this is where the satire comes in. So it's
great.
like this fast setting kind of rubbery resin sort of thing, and they just set him in that. But 10-second reply. See, it almost seems like maybe Dredd's reputation in the timeline of this film, Dredd's reputation hasn't really got out enough,
right? And
because if they knew that was Dredd, they'd be like, oh god, they'd be panicking.
Yeah, and assuming he's also pretty young in this timeline.
Well, because I think I told you, didn't I? Like, Dredd ages in real time.
Yeah.
So from his first appearance in '77, he's just basically he's aged in real time. So I can't remember how old he's supposed to be now. But since it's 42 years, so he's got to be well in his 60s. I mean, again, some proper fan will know exactly how old he is now, but he's got. I'd say he's probably in his late 60s. Do you find this strange? Well, it's weird because you see the way they've made Anderson is that she's very sympathetic and obviously traumatized by having to kill someone. Yet this is the society she would have been brought up in.
Right.
But the problem is, I suppose if she was absolutely okay with cold-bloodedly killing people like Dredd is, then it'd probably be harder for the audience to connect. I mean, she is the audience's proxy in this,
well,
really.
I guess there has to be some kind of a struggle, right? There's like a moral struggle between the two.
But then again, you got to be a judge. You got to be a judge, you know.
Sure.
And there's no room for there's no wiggle room. You know, earlier when they had the respirators on, when they put the gas on, I meant to say, you see like the badge on the top of his helmet, like the shield. Mm-hmm. In the comics, that actually comes down and acts as a respirator for them.
Oh, that's cool.
But I maybe they just thought like it might look a bit goofy or
a bit hokey.
Yeah, but that's actually acts as a respirator. Well, so what was I going to say? Yeah, so he ages in real time anyway, so he's got to be in his mid to late. He's probably at least about 67, something like that. But it's interesting because he has actually over the decades mellowed a bit more. Because he used to be just this pure...
He's more pensive.
Well, he just used to be this... He used to believe in the law. I think it's because it's one of those things where he's just been on the streets for that long. He's had that much experience.
He gets disillusioned.
Yeah. Mm. And, he's had, over 4 decades of doing that job. That, he'll have been through a lot and maybe seen that maybe the way the law is implemented isn't really changing things for the better. So you think about it, if you're doing the same thing for 40 plus years and you're not really noticing much of a drop in crime and things haven't really changed.
Yeah, you're mostly just maintaining status quo.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can make the argument that you're stopping everything from breaking down to full-on anarchy sort of thing.
Right.
But the thing is, I suppose you could also explain the fact that Anderson's like this because actually joining the judges, it's an alright lifestyle. I mean, you're not going to be poor, right? You get paid well enough, you have enough benefits, it's a solid job. Mm-hmm. But obviously the drawback to that is it's incredibly dangerous and judges die all the time. They often train them from a young age. I can't remember how old they are when they start to become cadets, but I want to say they're maybe something like 11 or 12. And even then in the comics they start doing live fire exercises in the teens. So it's a hard life, basically. It is, but it's at least that way you're gonna have a roof over your head. And,
right.
And I guess it's, and I suppose the comparison I draw is imagine if you lived under a dictatorial regime.
Right.
On the one hand, let's say if it's a really fascistic regime, if you're desperate, if you had the opportunity, would you rather join them and be immune from the subjugation, but you're part of the problem?
Right.
Or would you rather not, but then know that you're going to live a life of being completely impoverished, live in a terrible neighborhood? So it's it's a tough call either way. And of course Anderson feels slightly guilty because she executed her husband.
Yeah.
But then again, you see, he attempted murder of a judge, no messing about, sentence of death. And this is a future of absolutes.
Right. But then I can also understand why he did that, because he wanted the money to help his family out. So
that's why this is so bleak. That's the thing. It's like you're screwed both ways, essentially. This is the world that Judge Dredd lives in.
Yeah.
A lot of people are just born screwed, basically. and life is very cheap. And you can tell that actually it wasn't a case of that he was a terrible person. He was just desperate family man.
Yeah.
So this got a lot of unfair criticism leveled at it. I remember at the time when it came out, because it came out a little after the Raid came out, and because this is this confined in a building, working their way up through a tower block to get the bad guy at the top, just like the Raid was. Oh, Dredd's just copy of the Raid. Like, they came out within months of each other.
Yeah.
There's no way when that began production.
I still think this movie is great, though.
Oh no, yeah, no, it's brilliant.
Because I was, again, like when
it's a Chopper reference.
Yeah.
He's cool as Chopper.
I was very much like, I don't think this is going to be good. I don't really have like a lot of hope. But then it's like, saw it, I was like, oh.
I had some hope just because I knew Alex Garland was involved. I'd heard a bit of, I'd heard a few bits of information which made me think positively towards it. But obviously I was still fingers crossed, thinking it could still be bad. I mean, I thought Hellboy was going to be all right because David Harbour's a good choice and Neil Marshall's a really good director. I like.
Well, the problem with that is like you can see the massive mistakes, right? Because you can see that there's not a lot of money and they didn't use it correctly, and also way too many producers, way too many cooks in the kitchen.
It was clearly like a case of a lot of studio interference in that.
I also think it really helps, with a movie like this, like having somebody like Alex Garland who really knows a lot about storytelling. Oh, sure.
And also, the thing about 2000 AD fans is there's quite a few of them, but not nearly as many as like your Marvel or DC fans or whatever, globally. But your average 2000 AD fan is a hardcore 2000 AD fan. They are loyal as anything, and my God, will they pick you up on not portraying a character correctly or a story correctly when it comes to the canon of that comic. And I think it actually comes from it, not in a toxic way for the most part, just because 2000 AD is so beloved, and they really truly care about it. And I think Alex Garland has said himself, he's like me, he read the comics since he was a little boy. He was a big fan, which was reassuring.
Right.
But then even me, right? And okay, granted, I'm a little rusty with what's going on 2000 AD at the moment. But even if I thought it was pretty up to date, my God, if I was writing a screenplay for Dredd or Rogue Trooper or Strontium Dog or anything like that, I would stick my head back in those books and seriously revise and make sure everything's at the forefront of my mind as to not make a mistake.
Right.
Because I think the fans are owed that. But because Duncan Jones is directing the Rogue Trooper film, isn't he?
Oh, I didn't actually know.
Oh yeah. I'm a big Rogue Trooper fan as well. I would have loved to have written that script, because I know exactly how I would have written it as well. I should maybe nudge, just try and attach this and a tweet to Duncan Jones going, do you need any additional writing stuff? No, okay then. But no, Rogue Trooper's great. I love Rogue Trooper. That's 2000 AD character that I'd definitely like to write. See, obviously I'd love to write Dredd in a way, but the idea of writing a Dredd story I find quite intimidating, because he is like the flagship character, so to speak, of 2000 AD. I just feel like, oh God, if people don't like it, they'll hang you out to dry kind of thing.
Right.
But I wouldn't mind writing a Dredd story if it was like a one-off, self-contained kind of little Dredd story. I wouldn't feel as much the pressure. But going in like the main canon sort of thing, I don't know. You'd be getting phone calls from me, like just freaking out, going, "We read this. Do you think this is okay? This sucks." Too much pressure.
Getting hate mail. You destroyed this
I know.
character.
The thing is, I'd feel terrible about it because I love Dredd, so I'd be like, I'm sorry, I know I did.
See, if you ever did that, though, right? Because, like, the best that I ever got was somebody actually filmed themselves with a good guitar saying how much they hated, like, what me and, like, another writer did with these characters who are based on... So this was... without giving too much away, there was a beloved characters from like a major company that was set in like a different time and different.
God, you are being serious. I know what you're talking about. I don't think you have to be this vague.
I know. Okay. Well, anyway, point is, somebody filmed themselves and they made up a little song like saying why they hated us for killing this character.
You gotta love that.
Yeah.
I mean, I love that.
But that was amazing, though. You've
taken time out of your day to do that.
I actually bookmarked it, though, because I just thought it was insane, because I've never had that level of, like... I wish I got more of that. It was actually... it was brilliant. Like, it actually made my day.
You'll have to show me that.
Yeah, I hope it still exists. I hope this person didn't deactivate their account.
Oh, no, I'd love to see that. I just...
I've actually had people come up to me. Well, it was weird. Like, come up to me at a convention. Not really, but like they come to my table. They realize that I'm the artist from this like popular story that I drew, and then they go, "Oh, but you did that, so I'm gonna say something like really snarky under my breath and walk away."
It's that kind of entitled dickheadishness.
And I'm like, I'm sorry, like,
I mean, that to me
problem.
is the same kind of thing as like burning your Nike gear because you don't like the fact that they backed a black athlete who doesn't like innocent people getting murdered.
I think that they were upset because I think they thought that like you know, I guess the specific genre of comic was supposed to go one way, and they've never seen like I guess they've never saw like something like Deadwood or
it's that fan entitlement. But the point is, it's like Samuel Jackson was recently in an interview because he was coming out to be very anti-Trump. People going, "I'm never going to see your films again." He's like, "Whatever, man. I've already cashed that check a long time ago." He's like, "I don't care."
And I mean, let's be serious. Like at this point, if somebody is really saying that and in denial about like what the man actually represents, and if you're from New York City, you should know better too. Come on. I'm just saying, as a New Yorker, grew up with the dude, know exactly what he's about. Come on. And somebody's going to say, "How dare you? I'm never going to listen. I'm not going to listen to this channel."
I mean, look, here's the thing. You're always going to have... Hey, there's plenty of things. There's plenty of things out there. The way that I've seen characters portrayed in comics, in films, etc., that has annoyed me because I think, like, it's either lazy writing...
Well, yeah, that's what gets me the most.
Or it shows a fundamental... misunderstanding of everything that character or whatever stands for. Where I think, you don't get it, and I'm thinking, but I've never thought to hunt them down on Twitter and just get me. I've got more important shit to do. I just think, but you're allowed your own opinion, of course you are, but
I know I did I love that, like,
grow up,
because I've done like a bunch of videos before on YouTube, like for Marvel, and like one of them was like promoting like a product, and they wanted me to draw like Captain Marvel. Now, like you get a lot of people who, I mean, they can't stand the character, and I'm just like, I don't even have that much time in my life to hate on something so much. Like I just I don't.
You guys do realize there's sort of racism and people suffering out there, in the real world.
It almost seems like, the way they write this character, I'm like, who cares? Don't read it. If you don't like,
that's the thing.
It's.
Do you know what? If I see a trailer for a film and I go, that looks crap, guess what's going to happen? I'm not going to watch it.
Yeah, I don't get this like sort of ridiculous, like, like it's like all this fervor, like, oh my God, this is terrible. I mean, maybe it's because, again, it's one of those things where if you write and you draw and you do other creative things, it's like, well, I could just do my own for fun. You know,
Sure.
you don't really think about it too much, because that's what I did when I was a kid. If like there was an like a movie or an animated series I didn't really like the way it ended, I just drew my own ending and I was satisfied with that, and I tucked it away in my head, and I was like, okay, that's my continuity. You know, like, and that was it. That was.
It's interesting you say that,
Yeah.
because I think one of the things that started me off on writing as well, it wasn't, I didn't do it as an exercise at the time. It was just something I did in my own head. But if I'd seen a TV show or a movie or whatever, like I say, a cartoon series, in my head, if I wasn't happy the way they'd done it, let's say they portrayed a character in a weird way that didn't make sense, I go, well, I still do that to you now, don't I? Like, I still go, if they'd done this instead of that would have made way more sense. But that was kind of like the foundations for me for coming up with ideas and structuring things, and kind of go like, well, actually, well, no, and it sort of made me think about character and
yeah, it doesn't turn into this, now I'm gonna start a Twitter account and rant and rage about something.
Well, again, I've got more important things to do. I'd rather play a bit of PlayStation, you know what I mean? I'd rather listen to some music. I'd rather watch a different film.
Social media is a very weird thing now, I feel like, because I feel like that's so deeply tied to people's identities, right? I think that employers sort of look at that and they determine, like, what's your likability, what's your, you know, it's like a brand. I mean, we truly are living in dystopic times.
We are. I mean,
yeah.
We've had that conversation before, haven't we? Where I've said, what's so interesting about this generation coming up is, like, let's say, I don't know, you're like 12, 13 when, in like 2008 or something like that, when Facebook first started, you know, because kids write stupid stuff. But the thing about when you and I were kids, there wasn't social media. And so, you know, any stupid stuff you said to somebody, it was to their face or something, and like it's forgotten about. You don't see those people anymore. You think you can say, and especially when you just write something down, and you can't tell intonation or sarcasm necessarily from written comments. So even if you say something that could be construed as offensive, but actually you didn't mean it like that, and it's taken out of context, tough. Someone half the world away isn't going to see that. And then you're creating a record of your thoughts from the time you're young, when you're young and stupid and you don't know any better, and you say some dumb stuff that can come back and haunt you when you're like, oh, I'm going for this job 20 years later. Or actually, if we scroll back to 2010, when, you know, you were 15 and you said this, like, we haven't seen really the widespread effects of that yet.
Well, I mean, they started doing this thing now where they want to remove like likes and possibly even how many followers people have, and just in general, because I actually think that that's kind of smart, because I think it probably affects a lot of young people, but also like what I was talking about, because in China, aren't they doing that? What's your if you have like a high social standing, then you have more access to stuff. Just basically like what that episode of Black Mirror is based on.
Yeah, but that's getting to creepy levels.
But you kind of see it in America as well, even though that they don't really talk about it. But employers tend to do that in certain jobs.
Sure.
Which is wrong. But they go, oh no, it's just because, is it? Or it's because this person has 1 million followers, so therefore you think that they're an asset to this company, blah, blah, blah.
Oh, sure. I mean, it's a popularity contest, isn't it? I mean, and I do think the danger of it is that, well, I just think kids have enough, you know, high school's difficult enough and puberty's difficult enough without adding an extra layer of social awkwardness and all that sort of stuff. But you know, so I don't think I think you can do. I'm so glad that I didn't, you know, throughout my adolescence I didn't have social media.
Well, even with my own experiences, which is kind of weird, if I'm not on social media, I've had people I've had people say to me, "Oh, I thought."
Ouch! Sorry, I'm just.
Oh yeah.
Just wincing.
No, people thought like I was either, you know, suicidal or something. I mean, and I thought, Jesus, that's kind of dark for somebody who just happens to be living her life and working and.
Oh, sure. I mean, I remember a couple of, God, I don't know, at least a dozen or so years ago, I lost my mobile phone for a fortnight, and after a few days, it was, it was quite inconvenient for a few days. But after a week, I thought, this is lovely.
Yeah.
And then it was more other people getting annoyed that they couldn't get a hold of me. I'm thinking, I'm actually okay with this. This is good. But then, of course, you and I both doing the freelancing thing, it's not an option for us. Like,
No.
you need something where you can keep track of your. You need to be able to check your emails at all times and your messages because you have to be accessible.
Yeah, and I actually, I mean, it actually makes me pretty nervous and neurotic sometimes, even thinking about it, because I don't like the idea that you have to be so tied.
There you go, zero of the judges.
Yeah, I just don't like that you have to be so tied to your, your equipment. They're just tools. That's what it...
Yeah, well, that's the way the world's going, love. Which is why, we're cheerily doing a series on Cyberpunk stuff to try and cinematically embrace our dystopian future before it arrives.
Well, also, even more, even sadder is, like, you know how I told you, like, a while back that they... Like in my country, they have like medical portals. You could put all your information like this, and it'll help you access this, that, and the other thing. Number one, it's all bullshit. It's just a way that they could efficiently bill you more crap.
Yeah, of course.
And keep track of the billing, and then just keep fucking charging you stuff.
You're really just not caring about the no swearing thing today, are you?
Well, you did it too, honey. So
I don't think I've dropped the F-bomb.
Well.
Which is
medical stuff.
You know how difficult that is for me. You know how I swear every other word.
Well, same.
It's a swear off.
Well, we'll figure out how to beep it. Boop. There you go, you two.
Yeah, everyone wants to hear that through a commentary. So I think this about Judge a beep, beep.
Right in your ear.
Yeah. 90 minutes of Morse code. That's what it sounds like if you and I were talking normally.
I'm a child, and I'm so offended by the fact that you said the F word instead of being offended that they're, kids dying.
Priorities, kid. Priorities.
Yeah.
Speaking of kids. See, actually, this is where obviously you couldn't really do this because it would seem too harsh, but in the comics, it's possible that kids that age would get shot and killed by judges.
Right.
If they were threatening a judge's life.
Right.
Because it's be one of those where, well, they're old enough to know better. And I think the problem is because in this film you still got to see Dredd as the hero. And I think if you made a really accurate film, like a day in the life of Dredd.
Mm-hmm.
And if you didn't, why? so badass. But then if you'd never seen or heard the character of Judge Dredd before, if you just watched this film, this is your introduction to him, you probably wouldn't know how to feel about him if you saw him do some of the more dubious things that judges are allowed to do. Because, you've got to have a clear hero in a film. See, here's an interesting question. Has there ever been a Judge Dredd and Punisher crossover?
That would actually be really interesting.
Well, because the Batman Dredd ones, Batman doesn't really like Dredd too much. Yeah, because he stuns them both there. Where there's actually a fair chance in the comics you just shoot them because they're old enough, to know not to shoot at judges. Well, the Batman Dredd comics, Batman isn't too fond of Dredd because of his absolutism towards the law and the fact that he's willing to kill. Whereas
newsflash, Batman, he gets the job done.
Whereas basically Dredd just doesn't like Batman because he sees him as a pansy. Because there's this brilliant, I can't remember who wrote it and who drew it. Actually, it's painted. It's called The Final Riddle or The Last Riddle, something like that. Essentially, like Batman's trailing the Riddler. He trails into a dock where he suddenly disappears. And Batman follows him. Basically, the Riddler's found this interdimensional teleportation device. So Batman follows him, and they end up in this. It's just like a one-shot. It's like an oversized one-shot comic.
It's pretty cool.
No, it's a really good story. I am sorry. I'm gonna look it up simultaneously because I'm unprofessional. Well,
that's okay, because now our phones are literally plugged into our butts. So you can watch a movie, do a commentary, and look it up on your phone.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, is it The Ultimate Riddle? There you go, The Ultimate Riddle. It's really good. It's by Alan Grant. Alan Grant, who and John Wagner as well. Alan Grant also should be given a lot of credit because he was right there at the beginning in terms of writing Dredd, and he's a fantastic writer.
I do like those crossovers. Those are pretty cool.
Illustrators Carl Critchlow, Dermot Power, apparently. But yeah, it's painted. So basically, yeah, they end up in this alternate dimension full of all these different creatures from different dimensions. And Dredd's there as well. And it's supposed to be like, we've gone to all these different dimensions and found the strongest warriors, so to speak, from each one. They're pitting them against each other. And Dredd and Batman team up. And I think that isn't the first interaction they've had with each other, canonically speaking.
Interesting.
So there's a bit where there's this kind of, I've forgotten his name, but he's kind of like this, looks like this goat-headed demon guy is coming after them. And so Batman kind of throws a batarang at him with a line attached, so it kind of, wraps him up, ties him up, and immobilizes him. And Batman says something like, that'll keep him off our back for a while. And then Dredd just goes and kneecaps him and just goes, that'll make it permanent. And then Batman just turns around and slugs him. It's like all this unnecessary force. But yeah,
it's much more accurate. I mean,
The Ultimate Riddle, I would very much advise anyone to. I'm sure you can get it digitally if you. I think it came out in the 90s, the mid 90s.
Probably something I'd like to own.
Well, there's the artwork from it. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So this is when that's where they're all getting introduced. So no, it's really cool. It's very, very good. But I think I want to say it came out something like 95, 96, something like that. Great stuff, anyway.
Mom is not the law, he's the law.
I'm sure someone's re-edited this on YouTube. It's like, Mom's not the law, I'm the law. Because there's someone did that remix of to Genuine's Pony.
Yeah.
Where they've just done Stallone and Armand DeSanto just go, law, 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 law. Judgment time. Gotta give him a cool one-liner. Yeah, he is great as Dredd. Because I know Carl Urban was actually really wanted to do a sequel himself, but he really enjoyed playing the character.
I actually think that if they crowdfunded it would definitely happen.
I'm trying to think how much this costs. This costs it's between 50 and 60 million.
Yeah, which is nothing. So they could totally. You don't think that they'd raise more money?
To my understanding, it made a loss at the box office, but it kind of made its money back over the next year or two after through Blu-ray sales. Because I think at one point it was one of the biggest selling Blu-rays. So it's a real kind of word-of-mouth film that loads of people missed at the cinema, and then it just got around and go, no, it's a really good film. Yeah. Buy it. And a lot of people did then and really enjoyed it. So it's got a lot of fans, and rightly so. I mean, I enjoyed it a lot. I know our friend Rich went to go see it about 3 or 4 times at the cinema. I just saw it once.
I did somebody put out an AMV or a music video where they had the original Cure song for the Stallone one.
Oh yeah,
cut with clips of this. I think that song actually works.
You said that to me. That was cool.
Way better with it. I'm surprised that they didn't just ask them for permission if they could use that song.
Maybe they didn't really want to be in any way connected to the 95 terrible film.
Yeah, but that song just fits
I
so
agree.
much better with. I mean, it's like really sad that that's actually a decent Cure song, and it just, the original film just doesn't deserve it.
It's a shame the original film because it felt very much like Stallone was at the height of his popularity, and it just became another Stallone vehicle. That's the problem. It might as well have not been a Judge Dredd film.
Well, it was like a weird version of Demolition Man. I kind of felt like.
It did a lot of things right though. I think the intro bit, like when you first see Dredd and he's still got his helmet on, he's like that shootout. That was done really well. I mean, like when the way it showed Mega City 1 was really actually more accurate to the comics than this even. But obviously, like I say, I'm not detracting from that because I think they showed it like this for a reason.
Right.
And I think it works a lot. But they were trying to go, aesthetically speaking, in a lot of ways, I think they were trying to be more accurate towards the comics than the Stallone version. It's just the problem is they had Stallone in it. And again, I'm a big fan of Stallone. I just mean that you couldn't have an A-list star at that time go through the whole film with his helmet on.
Right.
Because now I don't know if that's down to Stallone or his agent going, I'm not going to have my boy, you're going to see his face. He's the star of this movie.
I mean, the decent thing about stuff now, right, is because like you have promotion, advertising through social media. It's not a problem for somebody like Carl Urban or anybody else to not show, you could basically go throughout the whole film and not show your face because somebody's like, oh, what does this person look like? And they look at their Instagram. But then again, there's some people who don't have Instagram, and I understand that for privacy reasons. I wouldn't want it either, but I have to have one.
Well, the point is, the way stuff is advertised now and promoted is vastly different than how it was 24 years ago.
Yeah.
The fact that I said 24 years ago and that was 1995 depresses the hell out of me. Do you reckon they cast these guys by chin?
Probably.
So I forgot the name of the guy who plays Judge Lex. But, they
could have gotten, what's his name? The one that we were talking about recently for Near Dark, who's also on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Oh, Adrian Pastor.
Yeah, he would be excellent. he's got the face for it.
Imagine if you just had like a casting call and loads of guys just had to turn up with like buckets on their heads just with the chins exposed.
I'd actually be good because I got a butt chin.
You ain't got butt. You ain't got butt chin. You need a massive chin. That's the point. In Dredd.
I got a cleft chin.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, but you need a huge. You need a huge chin.
There you go. I got it.
I think Rich was saying his fantasy older Dredd would be Clancy Brown.
Yeah.
It'd be a proper good choice, actually. Old man Dredd with Clancy Brown.
Actually, he would make a decent character if they decided to do a sequel. Just to have him like.
Clancy Brown's just a dude anyway. I think he's fantastic. He's absolutely brilliant. Yeah, I'd say he's like the sort of person that I'd date his daughter just so I could hang out with him.
I'm sorry, you dated
I don't even know if
he's
got a daughter. I'm just using that as an example.
Yeah, I apologize to everybody and you that you're dating.
Why isn't your dad Clancy Brown? Explain yourself.
No, I meant because you're dating me instead.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and your dad isn't Clancy Brown.
Yeah, I don't have a famous dad.
He does kind of look a bit like the Puerto Rican Mr. T, though.
My dad?
Yeah, I mean that in a complimentary way.
Not really. He looks like kind of like a cross between A-Rod and Terrence Howard.
Oh, don't be mean about your dad like that. He's better than Terrence Howard. I got to get me one of those, but you ain't gonna, Terrence. No War Machine suit for you, son.
I think he incurred the wrath of Robert Downey Jr. See, I don't know I mean, I'm sure he's a nice person in real life, but if he had that much control over stuff, I'm kind of like,
Well, I don't think anyone should have that much control. See, this is a cool scene, actually, because we haven't really talked about this hardly at all for ages. We've been going on tangents. But I like the way that Dredd's such a good detective that, like, even though, like, straight away he's seen a fellow judge, he should be relieved, right?
Right.
But he never switches off. So his detective mode's always in gear. Two of us called it in. You didn't ask about the other one. And then you just realise, that's the thing. This shows how like suspicious Dredd is, because like, you just see another guy in uniform, and straight away he just goes, well, he just never switches off. I love how visceral this is.
Well, that's what makes him so good.
Just inverts.
Yeah.
The imprint of his hand just inverts his Adam's apple. But that's the thing about Dredd. He is like the ultimate badass kind of thing. 'Cause that's why I love him as a character as well, because there's lots of aspects of his personality that are kind of problematic. Well, not really. It's not really his fault per se, because he was born to do that job, quite literally.
Well, yeah.
But so you could argue it's not completely his fault. It's the society he's born into. Blah 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 blah. But the point is, he does some questionable things in his line of duty. But you can't help but just think he's awesome, though. He's just kind of cool. Did you watch that Judge Minty fan film?
Yes.
I really liked that.
Yeah, it was
good.
It
was a short film. That was awesome.
Minty fresh.
Judge Minty's cool. I've got to confess, I'm not one for much for memorabilia and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I do kind of really want a judge's badge with my name on it. Is that really sad? It is sad, isn't it? You can just say yes.
No, that's what you want. That's what you want.
I would, again, I'm not even one for cosplaying, but I would love a full judge's outfit.
Well, I like these outfits. They're a lot cooler.
Well, do you ever get any of the cons where you're at?
Yeah.
Walking around? Yeah, because there's a bunch of guys who seem to go around a lot of the cons in the UK, and there's like, there must be like half a dozen of them, and they do look cool.
Yeah.
Well, they do look like legit cool.
I'm definitely too short to...
Too short to be a judge. Dumbass.
Well, it just doesn't... I just don't know if the costume would look right on me. I had tiny legs.
A short judge.
Yeah.
Oh no. Yeah, that showed of Anderson was like he was going to bleed out from a blasted apart arm anyway.
Yeah.
This bit's really brutal as well. It's like just shoot through his face, like shoot his face apart. Like, hey,
yeah.
This bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
It just blows his head apart.
Yeah.
It does make me wonder with Dredd though, because his lawgiver ammo was low. It does make me wonder why he just didn't pick up like a weapon from one of the guys he's killed.
Right.
Unless he's just like, nope, gotta use my judge gun. Which I believe they modelled. It's either Glock 17 or Glock 18. They modelled this one on. Because if you look, as much as I love the comic series, I do prefer that gun design, because like the original in the early days of Dredd, the comics, it had I thought the design of the lawgiver had a bit too much of a 50s kind of sci-fi ray gun kind of look to it, really.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bit too narrow, and I think in the comics, what is it? Or at least it was when I was younger. You got high explosive, rapid fire, incendiary, ricochet, which he doesn't use in this. Oh god, I can't remember. I think it's just, is it a separate grenade? Well, I can't remember now. And like you got stun as well. I've probably missed one or two out. Yeah, whereas in the Stallone film, you get the double whammy. It's like 2 bullets. What's the point of that?
Yeah.
You just did it for that one shot early on in the Stallone film. It's like, where I can just shoot 2 guys. Oh, armor piercing. That's another.
Right.
That's another round that they have in this, and it's in the original comics. Yeah, double whammy. It's just for that one shot, so you can shoot 2 people at once.
Double whammy.
Double whammy. I knew you'd say that. What's with that? I'm trying to give him a catchphrase throughout this Stallone one. Judge Chin. Look at that. I mean, as much as I love Urban, that's more of a Dredd chin than Carl Urban's chin is.
Yeah.
You ever seen some of the ways Dredd's like... draw that his chin's just gigantic.
Yeah.
See, you won't get the reference because you're American, but there's a ex-footballer turned commentator called Jimmy Hill, and he's just known for having a massive chin. It's a weird comedy verse. You had a younger Jimmy Hill play Judge Dredd. We had a kind of voice like this, and I am the law.
He stuttered.
A little bit. I'm exaggerating. And not your banana-chinned comrades. What you got? What you got under the helmet there, Lex? Your face like a crescent moon. See, now I've got to get you to read Blockmania and Apocalypse War. It's awesome.
I will. Consider it a part of my winter reading list.
Yeah. I've got like I keep saying loads of different books to you, don't I? Oh, Langley Kirkwood, which sounds like a very American name, but he's South African.
Langley.
Surname for a first name. That's how you know you're American. Hey, Crawford. Just because I'm running out of ammo, so I just use high X and blow his head apart.
Yeah.
Look at that. That's it. Like Langley Kirkwood. Even with a chin, the beard can't hide that chin.
Oh yeah.
Serious chin. I don't think I've seen him in anything else. See, it's just as well. She's psychic. Is it me or is that female judge? Her helmet doesn't look like it fits her properly.
Mm-hmm.
The head looks really tall.
Mm.
Like it looks like the helmet needs pushing down a little bit. Yeah, she's got a really tall, long head.
It's a possibility. Because I'd imagine they have to cast, right, for everybody who's like wearing
Oh sure.
one of the outfits.
See, armor piercing. Ow. Although he's kind of looking, they're going, oh. Oh.
Oh no, he's not the law anymore.
I'm on the floor. See, I do like the way they've incorporated like the eagle design into the shoulder pad. It does look, it looks practical. That's what I like about this armor. It looks futuristic and intimidating, but it does also look like it looks like armored bike leathers. And really, since they do ride around on motorbikes, the Lawmasters, then they are kind of bike cops, really.
Yeah. Except they don't write out tickets.
They punch people's tickets.
In their face.
That's implied. Yeah, thanks for that. Steamroll over my joke. Look, he's got
always gotta
full
have
grimace.
the last blade.
Full grimace. Full grimace. Wait for me to have a human chin? No.
I like how his helmet has most of the red paint off of it.
Yeah. Shot him through the chin. He just exit and just blew his entire chin off.
Yeah.
No, wait for it to shoot you.
It's like so much for all the backup.
I know, right? I do like this little show of like the first aid kit.
Yeah, that's
so it's kind of futuristic. It's still kind of like brutal. You got the self-closing stitches.
Ay. Tony put bandages over, just zip it up.
Just zip it up. Because it's Dredd.
I still would have put something over it. That's gross.
Dredd won't get an infection. Even bacteria are afraid of Dredd, so just run away. Little known fact. Judge Joe Dredd is just 100% sterile because even microorganisms are afraid of him. He's there passing sentence on him at home with a bottle of bleach, cleaning out his bathroom. I'm up the floor. I've already made the floor reference.
I know.
I'm a bit limited, really. Poor Donald Gleason. trapped in a big wire and screensaver room. I think actually what I like about Olivia Thirlby's character, the way her acting in this, what I really like about it is physically, she really sort of changes throughout because the way she sort of carries herself, her body, like she looks far more nervous and edgy when she starts out, and then towards the end, there's real kind of like there's confidence in her posture and in the way she moves. So she does a great job of kind of like showing, not telling, in terms of that. I mean, really, this is kind of more like her story, really.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the thing. If she wanted to, technically, regardless, right, he's still a criminal.
Mm-hmm.
But because she could see inside his head, and because she felt bad about shooting that guy, she, that's what I like about Anderson, because there is a bit of humanity in her.
Yeah.
Like, she's like, technically, according to judges' rules, the actual law, hey, you commit the crime, doesn't really matter about almost like mitigating circumstances don't matter,
Yeah.
You still committed the crime, that's it, it's black and white like that.
Right.
But with her, she's just like, well, the guy's he's being manipulated,
well,
and
he's
his
been
eyes
tortured.
dug out.
It was either like you do this or you die, and it's almost like what judges, or at least what Judge Dredd says, it's like it doesn't matter. You should have just died with dignity instead of aid in a bed like criminals. you just take it and die.
Well, that's almost like a Norse thing, isn't it? It's almost like dying the straw death, isn't it?
Yeah.
You're supposed to die in battle, which is why you get this in the comics, and as they did a bit in the Stallone film, they show that you can either teach at the academy once you retire, or until you retire, sort of thing, get to a certain age, or you can go out into the cursed earth and they give you a gun and a book of the law, and it's taking law to the lawless, sort of thing. But then obviously it's kind of like a death sentence, because obviously the cursed earth is just a complete savage, lawless land full of hundreds of thousands of weird mutated beasts and outlaws and cannibals and all that kind. So you're not going to live that long. See, I would say, I know it's restricted by the budget, but I kind of felt like at this point there should have been at this stage there should have been one big kind of gunfight with a bunch of more people basically, and then you have the Mama kind of confrontation. Right. I really like Lena Headey as a person. She seems really cool, but a lot of her acting to me seems a bit stiff, but I actually think she's really good in this.
Yeah.
The weird thing about this is, and I'm not getting into this because I bloody hate that program, but considering she's supposed to be a sadistic sociopath in Game of Thrones,
she's more so here. Yeah.
She portrays that far better. And obviously, her facial expressions, the way she acts.
Maybe you got to do it in an American accent.
Who knows? But no, because it's interesting though, because actually they don't try and show her with any level of sympathy, do they really? I think if you made it tonally 100% accurate film adaptation to the comic books, I think a lot of people would, your average cinema going audience would find it too bleak and too morally ambiguous, and I think it would. The way she shoots her anyway.
Yeah.
Because she's got a device linked to the explosives.
Yeah, she's like trying to I have leverage, and he's like, nah, you don't.
Again, it's that. Well, again, this is why I think you got that parallel between him and the Punisher. It's like there's no compromise whatsoever. Yeah. You're a bad guy. You're gonna die, basically. It's a bit in the beginning where he's just like try to negotiate. He's like, no, I'm just gonna shoot you in the mouth and incendiary.
Yeah, I also like how they put the drug is like you inhale it through, like it looks like an asthma pump. It looks like mine.
See, at first I thought this seemed a bit vengeful for Dredd.
Mm-hmm.
Him giving her the slow-mo. A bit kind of like, it's not really how he'd do it. Because the main point is, he thinks, well, oh, if I throw her down there, all that, the radio signal between that and the concrete,
right,
is it'll get blocked. But he doesn't need to give her the slow-mo.
right.
But it's like he gives her the slow-mo just so she'll suffer more, because obviously she'll see her fate coming for longer. So cause it's like, it's supposed to be like 1% of the time. So it's almost like she knows she's going to die, but she can see it for longer.
Yeah.
Which isn't really something I'd say Dredd would do. Again, he's a bit like, in the Tom Jane Punisher, where he's like, made you kill your best friend, made you kill your wife. It's like, nah, Frank Castle wouldn't do that. He'd just kick the front door in and hose everyone down. The shortest route between 2 points is a straight line kind of thing. And Dredd's a bit like that too. You wouldn't go, I'm going to punish you. It's just like, no, you're a criminal. You commit these crimes. The sentence is death. Bang.
Right.
I'm going to kill you. Obviously, you wouldn't have shot there, because obviously the reason by throwing her out there is to block the signal.
Right.
But you would have just gone, no, and just hoid her right through the glass.
I wonder if this is more just like an artistic choice.
Oh, sure. I mean, I'm not being down on the film for making that. I'm just nitpicking here. And I'm not saying, oh, it's terrible, it ruins my immersion. I think it works fine, but I'm just saying, for the sake of nitpicking, I don't think the character would do that. He'd just chuck her. Really.
To be honest with you, she don't seem that bothered by it.
Well, yeah, because she's probably like high, isn't she?
Yeah.
That's the whole thing. It's when she makes contact with the ground, because we're basically looking from the point of view of the ground, and you see like a scar split open, don't you? Like the skin tears there. Which is that's kind of gross.
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah.
Look, it's got some nice ambient music on it. It looks like a bloody Rorschach picture. But again, like Hardcore Henry that we also covered. I like how this film is to the point, doesn't mess about. Because it could have wasted a lot of time if he wanted to by just going, this is Judge Dredd, this is his will, let's do an origin story. And it's not got any fat on it, I don't think. Again, this film, it's 95 minutes long, doesn't mess about, really efficient in the character and the world set up.
Yeah.
There's no point in this where you get bored. I do think it's a real shame they never made a sequel to this. Because I think because the world of Mega City 1 is that rich, there's a load of stories you can pull from.
Right.
There's absolutely loads. And even if you wanted to keep it more realistic, because our mutual friend Richard, he says himself he prefers the more day in the life Dredd stories out of the comics, the more police procedural ones, and so do I actually. Although some of the more mad characters that can be a bit of fun. And there's plenty I do perfectly enjoy. For me, the ones I get the most enjoyment out of it is like your gritty street level kind of him dealing with some interesting kind of gangster or...
which is probably why this one is really good.
Yeah. In that way, it's a bit like Batman in the sense that because different people like different aspects of Dredd. Some people like Batman, for example, like the detective or the superhero or the vigilante, or the kind of goofy Batman. And whereas with Dredd, there's some really grim, gritty kind of fairly realistic stories, and then there's some mad stuff where he's again fighting space mutants and stuff. And I mean, I think if they had. I wouldn't like a Judge Death sequel because I think he's just a bit too over the top. And once you take away everything from him, his appearance and how interesting him and the Dark Judges look, he is a bit one note. Like, he's a bit one of those bad guys, like, I want to kill everyone. Why? Because I do. Because I'm evil. Because I want to kill everyone. All right, then. He's like one note. See, she's a pass because she's cool. It's interesting that they chose to use Judge Anderson instead of Judge Hershey.
Yeah.
But I think it adds a different dimension to it. I think if it was just, you could have done with Judge Hershey, her being the rookie, then you wouldn't add the psychic element into it, which also opens up a certain aspect of the world. So I think it probably was better that they used Judge Anderson. But no, I know what you're saying about crowdfunding, but it's one thing crowdfunding a couple of million. It's another thing crowdfunding like 50 odd million.
No, but
million.
you'd be surprised if they could do it over the course of like maybe a year or two. I guarantee that a lot of people would donate.
And also, should say, Cars Iscara.
Yeah.
Garston, co-creator, who selfishly died on my birthday last year, 2018. And no, he was. I actually, when I started out in writing comics and that, because he was always someone I really looked up to, fantastic artist, and I spoke to him quite a lot. I was actually even potentially going to be working on something with him at one point. It fell through, but I was when I thought that was going to happen. You imagine I was only been writing for a couple of years by that point, so obviously I was like, I handled it in a very mature. No, I didn't. I was running around going, oh my god, and like ridiculous excited because Cars Iscara is awesome. I used to email him from time to time, and do you know what? He always took the time to get back to me, even though the only way he knew me is because I just emailed him out of the blue once. Like a big nerdy fanboy. But for my interaction with him, he was a genuinely, truly lovely bloke and an absolute artistic legend. And I was incredibly sad when I heard that he passed away, especially since it looked like he just recovered from lung cancer for the second time. Because he beat lung cancer once and lost a lung. So he had one lung for years. And so R.I.P. Carlos. He's a cool dude. Yeah. There's also apparently it's down as Pete Travis. Jock did the concept art as well. Obviously, brilliant artist. Jock. It's apparently Pete Travis was supposed to be the director of this, but I think in an interview a few years ago, Carl Urban basically said that there was fallings out. The Lionsgate side, so essentially Alex Garland ended up directing most of what you see here. So although it wasn't his official directorial debut, in a manner of speaking it kind of was,
right? Apparently
so from what I read. But if anyone, by the way, enjoys this interpretation of Dredd and hasn't ever read any 2000 AD comics, I strongly recommend you do look up his back catalogue. And if you don't really know anything about 2000 AD as a comic publisher, I would strongly recommend you watch the documentary Future Shock, which was made a couple of years ago, and is a really comprehensive breakdown of the history of 2000 AD. It's got loads of interviews with former editors and current artists and writers, past and present. It's brilliant. So if you haven't seen that, I would highly recommend it. So yeah. So that's 2012's Dredd, the film that everyone who's seen it practically goes, why isn't there a sequel? Why isn't there a sequel? And apparently
there should be.
There should be. It's a shame, but time's getting on a bit now. 7 years now. God, time flies. But they are supposed to be Rebellion are supposed to be sorting out a Mega City 1 series, and I keep hearing conflicting things about that in terms of like there've been hold-ups and that, and certain delays. I can't remember what's supposed to be going on with it now, but I hope it does happen, because I do actually think, as much as I really enjoy the Dredd film, I think something like, I think you could make a series out of Dredd. I think it just costs quite a bit. That's the problem.
Well,
but I think it would lend itself better to a TV series, and a lot of the other characters in Mega City 1 as well. I mean, I don't know. I'm really not the authority on this. You wanna check out Mr. Richard Jackson's channel, Valverde Broadcasting. So I think he's yet to have done much of it. He's done a couple of 2000 AD featurettes, but he's the one. He's out of everyone I know personally, he's the one who's like encyclopedic about everything 2000 AD. He's been collecting them for God knows how many years. Right. I should buy you a copy from the co-op for you to read on the plane.
Yeah.
Because this is, oh God, yeah, this is probably going to be the last commentary we do for a while together. Because Juju has to go back home to New York. Don't you?
Yeah.
That's a good contribution there.
Well, I'm so happy that I'm going back to New York.
She wants to stay here and do commentaries with me forever.
Well, I didn't say that, but
forever. No, that's what you said. Yeah. Like, should I want to do all this forever and ever and ever? Let's find all the movies. Let's not spend quality romantic time together. Let's just sit here talking trash about films while I mess about for ages trying to get GarageBand working properly so it'll record. See, I didn't really pick up a lot of those songs.
I mean, hopefully in between, then and now we can do a lot of little other fun things for everybody.
Yeah, I'm thinking of doing a couple of playthroughs. I can't believe it doesn't make some like little joke at the end. About, because he did that in RoboCop, didn't they?
Yeah, they did.
Like any attempt to copy this or whatever will be subject to execution by enforcement droid or something like that. Right, well, that is that, kids. So we hope you enjoyed it anyway. It is an awesome film. And please, the usual, like, subscribe and share if you like this. And check out the link to the description for the featured artist this week, and the Redbubble, and the Instagram, and the Twitter, and stuff. So yeah, until next time.
Stay connected.
And bye-bye.
Bye.
Support the cyber revolution and look great while doing it by checking out our Redbubble shop down in the description.